JB here, March 21st, 2024. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. About an hour and a half to the close. Not going to talk about too much. I always say that, and then this goes on for 20 minutes. But talk a little bit about the markets, talk about the GLP-1 names and the weight loss names, talk a little bit about PayPal, talk a little bit about CHWY. Don't really want to talk about CHWY, but added those speculative calls near the end of the day and go from there. But first, talk about the markets. And you had the Fed release their statement and press conference yesterday. Powell was able to walk the tight line or the tightrope between addressing the higher than expected inflation over the last couple months versus the expectation of rate cuts coming this year. And the Fed had already kind of forecasted 3 rate cuts in 2024. So they kept that. So they stood pat on that. And it sounds like the rate cuts will come sometime late summer, early fall, although the market's given a 68% probability that the first rate cut's going to happen at the June meeting. Either way, somewhat, it wasn't hawkish tone, so the market would interpret it almost as dovish in nature. Markets rallied, new all-time high close on the S&P and the Dow. And pending any crazy reversal here, we'll get another all-time high close. And I'm trying to remember the year. I don't know if it was 2014 where we had a record amount of high closes for the S&P. I don't know if it was 2014. I forget what the year was. But areas I'm looking at, and I talked about on the rant on Monday, that 512.50 area on the SPY, that was key support resistance for a couple days. If things got dicey, then that 504 area, and the upper Bollinger Band right now on the SPY is 521.03. So we'll see what happens. You had the Reddit IPO today, all the way up to 57.80. It's down here at 46 now. I think it was 5.8 billion valuation at its $35 target range. So that was the high end of their IPO pricing. So I don't know what it is now, $8 billion valuation. It has some strong growth. So, it's not a name I'll trade once the option's open, I don't think. But certainly I'm going to try and take a look at that S1 filing, which I haven't had a chance to do. Anybody who posts on Reddit, and I don't do it as often as I used to, but I got the little email saying, oh, you can get shares for IPO for Reddit. And I didn't go through with the registration or whatever because I'm not one who typically buys IPOs, but probably could have locked in shares already and called it a day, unless you think Reddit's the future and it goes bonkers. But so that's kind of the markets there. There's still some earnings after the close today. I think is Nike and Lulu. I think Nike reports after the close today. My thoughts with Lulu, but it seems Nike reports after the close today. Lulu's had some interesting reports over the last couple of quarters. I think of the past 9 quarters, 6 of the 9 it's close to the upside, and the last 4 have been to the upside. So the next day after earnings, it closed up 5% last quarter, 6% the quarter before, 11% the quarter before that, and then the quarter when we're in right now, it was up 12% last year. So will be interesting to see how that all pans out. And then last but not least is this. This was it the FTC, whoever came out with this going after Apple for they did it with Microsoft back in the day. Excuse me, folks, just give me a second here. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, so they're supposedly going to come after for Apple, which they've talked about Google for quite some time, anti-competitive things that they've done to keep folks using complementary products and things like that. But I'm a free market person, so if people don't like the product, don't use it or find a way around. But I understand, and you see what they did with Massimo. They use their power to subvert their patents and things like that. So I get both sides of the story. The stock, what was it down? It was almost, is it down 3% now? 4%. So it's right here. It's right here at lows, 170.88. I don't know if that's some of it. I guess Tim Cook was opening a store in China too. So I'm surprised the S&P is able to weather that, considering the Magnificent Seven account for a large percentage of the S&P. But NVIDIA, well, it's only up 1% now, so maybe that's some of the reason. So that's that. Here's a SPY's tick down here to 522. We'll see if that upper Bollinger Band at 521.03 holds. So that's that on Apple and the markets. GLP-1. So I added a couple names in the weight loss. I've been in GPCR back in March. Got back in on some strikes. I wish I got the 45s. The stock is up nearly 13, almost 14% right now. It's at 44 bucks. Went all the way up near 46 just about an hour ago. Similar to VKTX, they're going to have two pieces of data out before the end of this quarter. One is an update on the data they presented in December. So if you didn't know, GPCR was, I think it was $75 coming into data in December. They announced mid-December. They announced data for their GLP-1 drug. It came in lower than expectations. I think it was a 4.8% weight loss drop in an 8-week study. Supposedly, or what's supposed to happen is they're going to come out with an update on the full 12 weeks, and their expectation was 7%. So if that comes in line, I think that bodes well. That's number one. Number two, they have an oral solution that they're going to release data on. So those two pieces alone, I'm not saying if the data comes out for the updated data from December comes out positive, it's back at 70 bucks. But I think there's a decent risk reward here. And considering the first quarter, sorry, folks. We'd be lucky here if I get it into April, but it leaves you have a 33% chance that they're going to come out with data before April expiration. Well, maybe 28% because you got to include it's only the first 3 weeks of April. But I'll continue to look for opportunities to trade GPCR for upside, because even though their data came in less than expected, I think there's still a niche that they can serve. I talked about it on Monday. I think there's a lot of this market's so big that there's going to be room for plenty of players. And not only that, you have some of these other big pharma names that don't have any exposure to the GLP-1 market. So GPCR, I think, is a great name. They also have some other studies of add-on solutions to help weight loss. So they have a lot of different interesting things going on. That's why I continue to look to trade that one for upside. I was looking to lock some of my calls in. They're up over 100%. I'll probably lock just a couple in before the close and ride the rest, because you never know what could happen. Same, I added some more TERN strikes. I already have April 10 freebies, got some 750s. Similar story here. Unfortunate thing that I talked about with TERN quite a bit is they don't have that out to the second half of 2024. So it leaves the room for folks who are short the name or bears to kind of get in there and manipulate the stock somewhat. So that's somewhat a concern. But then on the flip side, positive data by GPCR, VKTX in the coming weeks, I think just bodes well. And then obviously the M&A backstory, if there's any M&A in the space. And then last but not least, VKTX, which is sitting here at 70 bucks, spiked all the way to 74.35 in the morning. Some huge option flow the last couple days. The April 5th 90s, April 5th 100s. There's been some other strikes. Let's see, today it had 18,000, but 10,000 of it yesterday was a spread. Let's see, today 17,000 contracts traded. April 19th, the $70 strikes at 13 bucks. 1,000 of those went through. And then it looks like a spread. They April 19th 90s went through for 1,000 just a little while ago. So 2,000 contracts, that's a lot of millions in premium right there. 1,000 contracts at 13 bucks times 100, do the math. I mean, I could do it really quick. Let's see here. 100 times 13 times 1,000 times 13. It's a lot of zeros. So that's 1.3 million. And then half of that. So that's $2 million in contracts went through. So my thoughts there on VKTX. At some point, they're going to have the oral data. And I don't even think, as long as it's in line, and, the previous data was phenomenal. So you have to think, and I talked about NVO. NVO had their phase one, similar to VKTX's data. VKTX's oral data is going to be phase one as well. When NVO released positive data, it gained $30 billion in market cap. And if you look at the market cap right now of VKTX, it's, was it 9, 8? Oh, 7.7 billion. So pretty much added 4 VKTXs when it announced just positive phase 1 oral data. It wasn't phase 2, wasn't phase 3, wasn't any FDA approval or anything like that. So pretty much they could have bought VKTX 4 times over on its just using shares from the gain that it had from its market capitalization on that data. So, I sit here and it's just, to me, it's mind-boggling that VKTX sold off on that news, and on the flip side, it should have went higher. But at some point, you have to think there's going to be some MA. I thought last weekend it was going to happen. Maybe it's this weekend happens if VKTX doesn't announce data today or this afternoon or tomorrow. So rock and roll there. So that's that on those GLP-1 names. CDLX, it's down here. It's actually going to go red to green, it looks like, all the way up to 1620. I continue to talk about this one. Just a great story. Clifford Sozen added more shares, $9 billion addition to his already huge stake. I think he owns 13% of the company. This company is going to own over 60, at least. You have to think how many transactions are done on American Express in the country, right? So, it's got to be, maybe it's 7, 8%, I don't know. So that just adds to their overall view of all the transactions in the United States, 58%, 60% of all the card swipes in the US, which just not only is it profitable, it drives revenue for them, but it also is going to be able to give them better insights for their customers, right? And be able to tailor the offers to those customers. And then it's a data trove for these companies. So who knows if at some point then they'll go try and sell some of that data. But I think it's a great story. I think it heads over $20 in the coming weeks. I wish, and I emailed the CBOE, they don't have higher strikes past April. So if you start looking to get strikes in May, the strikes only, I think they go up to 20. And that's not the type of risk reward I like. So the Mays only go up to $15. So not the type of risk reward I do. I'd rather you just buy the common stock if you're going to buy a contract for $3.50 when the stock's trading at $15. So hopefully they can add strikes up to $30 or so, and I can look to get May 25s or something like that. So that's the CDLX story. And it still has a decent short interest. So you have to think people are going to start unwinding. 11% short interest on CDLX. I think it's just a great story. And it starts to rebound. I use the comparison with LendingTree, and LendingTree's up 43.52 today. It was all the way down to $10 only a couple months ago. I'm not saying CDLX is going to 43.50 in the coming weeks, but I do think there's an opportunity for continued upside, maybe $25-30 in the coming months, and then possibly higher after their next earnings report. So that's CDLX. CHWY. So, I was watching CHWY all week. It's one of those names I had over the weekend when I was pulling up the earnings reports. Thought, here's a name that's fallen off after its last earnings, the investor day. I think it was near $25, all the way back down to pretty much all-time lows Monday, Tuesday, and then started to reverse course after the Fed meeting. And then I looked and I said, wow, I don't want to be in a situation where this thing rallies 35% and I miss out on the calls after staring at it all week. So I got some inexpensive speculative calls into next week. Sure enough, in the afternoon, after the close, the stock spikes. They report earnings, and it looked at first glance like it was a beat and raise. But then it looks like they just scaled back their next quarter revenue guidance. So that missed, despite the full year guidance, revenue guidance exceeding expectations. Another name has a large short interest. I think it's 15% as of the last update. Let's see here. Yeah, 15.4% short interest. So, there's a lot of folks with a vested interest on seeing it go down. And this is despite the fact it's a very divisive name. So you have folks like JP Morgan still has a overweight rating, $22 price target. Goldman Sachs still has a buy rating, $32 price target. JPM Securities, $26 price target, 40 outperform rating. Bank of America has an underperform rating, but a $16.50 price target, which is where it's trading right now. So I don't know. It's going to need some kind of catalyst into next week for my calls to come back to life, but just kind of disappointing there. I'm trying to think of some of the other uh, names to talk about here. Avago, right? So, I was looking for some hedges this week, like I have been the last couple of weeks, because at some point there's going to be some reversal, and I don't want to be caught with my proverbial pants down. But probably in hindsight, I could have got both sides of Avago. It hit 12:04 on Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, Tuesday morning, and here it is. It went all the way up to 14:03 after their AI Zoom presentation yesterday. Had upgrades today. You had Micron earnings, so all those, you put those together, and the stock just went bonkers. It seems to be one of the favorites, I guess. Which, at the same token, once the rising tide raises all ships, and then once the tide starts to come down, some of these names are going to fall, and it's going to the puts will pay out nicely, especially if you're in before the big moves come, because not only are you getting the implied volatility increase, but then you're getting the move to the downside with the stock. So it's kind of a double whammy, which is why puts sometimes, you hate to be in puts, but at the same token, when things get crazy, the VIX goes up, volatility goes up, and then it causes the premiums to go up just because of that, even if the stock doesn't move much. And if it does move to the downside, it accelerates twice as quick. So it can be very profitable, especially to offset calls, because if you're in a lot of call positions, the market, they pull out the carpet, the rug gets pulled out from under. It's not a fun day. So that's that. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. I put Spotify on there because if you take a look, Spot went all the way up to 270, and then had pulled back, and then it looked like we're starting to reverse. So yesterday it looked like the first day of a reversal after closing down, looks like 7 of the past 8 sessions, and then it looks like it's going to head back to 270. So maybe tomorrow be some nice lottos on Spotify. Who else did I have on the watch list this morning? PayPal. Oh yeah, what else to talk about PayPal, right? Here's a name that's just been beaten to death, rightfully so. It used to be a huge growth name. Excuse me. But a lot of competition, margin compressions. They had to reinvent their business. They had just recently had an investor conference, and now they're looking to focus on AI, right? But I mean, it's a great company. So instead of it being a huge growth company, now it's more of a value company. But I think there's opportunity. Barron's had a nice positive piece on it on PayPal, not this weekend, the weekend before. I think there's an opportunity to play it into the 70s. I was actually looking at the 70 strikes. They looked kind of expensive on a risk-reward basis, because I think if it gets over 70 in the coming couple of days, I think higher strikes will pay off better on a bagger side. So instead of it making 100% on the 70 strikes, I think I can make 400% on the 75 calls. So that was kind of the thought process on getting the higher strikes as opposed to going closer to the money. Let's see here. And having the 19s, so there's plenty of time. Don't have to worry about the intraday fluctuations. Don't have to worry about the calls that are going to expire tomorrow or next Friday. Have plenty of time to hold those for upside. Excuse me. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. Pretty remarkable with CMG, right? Chipotle used to be one of my favorite stocks to trade back in the day. I remember people used to be very bearish to name because they're like, they just sell burritos, right? How can the stock used to be a couple $100, 600, and then they had that big E. coli outbreak. And I remember I had puts on that. I could post the articles, but all of a sudden I had the puts, and there was another outbreak, and stock plummeted, and I think there were like 20 bags or something like that. It was pretty crazy. Then I wrote some nice pieces because I think you had to restore investor confidence, not only investor but consumer confidence on your brand after you have an outbreak like that. And it took a while for CMG to do it, and it seemed like everybody was late to the party when it started to happen. And then I turned back to being bullish on CMG. And then the last couple of years, it's been very hard to trade CMG because the spreads are insane. So you could stock be $2,500, and it would be a Wednesday, and you go to look to get some lottos, and the 2,700 calls would still be $1. So it just makes it very tough at the trade. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what used to happen with Priceline, and Priceline now is Booking.com, BKNG. But back in the day, it used to be PCLN was the ticker, and they used to be a fun one to trade because it would be an $800 stock or $500, or maybe when it was even $300, used to trade a lot because the premiums were playable. The spreads were tight. You can get in and out, right? Because that's important, right? If you get in a call contract, you want to make sure you can, or put contracts, you want to make sure you'll be able to get out when things start going, right? Or start moving. So that used to be a fun one to trade. But then once it's gotten to the 1,500, 2,000, then it became unplayable. So that's similar to what happened with CMG. So it's going to be fun to finally be able to trade CMG because the option is going to be a heck of a lot more liquid with the 50-to-1 split. So can't wait for that. And I think that's it, folks. Hopefully the market kind of stands pat here, doesn't do anything too crazy. CDLX just went red. GPCR just dropped nearly $3 in the last hour. Hopefully that holds up, at least up here somewhere. And that's all I got, folks. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.